Hollywood complaining that something is in bad taste while a fucking joke. Hollywood fucking thrives on bad taste and it's always been that way. This is not a new phenomenon. What were the most popular movies when I was growing up? The Godfather, The Exorcist, A Clockwork Orange, Midnight Cowboy, Last Tango in Paris, The Last Picture Show, Night of the Living Dead, Mean Streets, Class of 42, Shampoo, Clue, The Marathon Man, MASH, Alice's Restaurant, The Trip, Joe, The Graduate, Barbarella, Pink Flamingos, Putney Swope, Dirty Harry, The Magnificent Seven, Outlaw, Josie Wells, Five Easy Pieces, Bob Carroll, Ted and Alice, Black Sunday, and The Long Goodbye. Brewster McCloud, Harold Ahmad, the producers, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Granted that many of these are some of my favorite movies of all times, but you get the point. It just amuses me to no end that people have a revisionist history, a revisionist view of Hollywood. Like movies just recently started pushing the envelope. Bullshit. Hollywood feigning outrage over something being a bad taste while a fucking joke. Hollywood fucking thrives on fucking bad taste and it's always been that way. Are you kidding me? As serious as their crimes are, it didn't take a Harvey Weinstein or Bill Cosby for me to know that there's a problem of misogyny and sexism in Hollywood. All I had to do was watch Hollywood movies my entire life to know that. Did it seem like they had an enlightened view of femininity? They weren't even being subtle about it. They weren't trying to hide it. The sexism and misogyny is right there on the screen. How did you not read those tea leaves? They weren't even being subtle about it. The sexism and misogyny is right up there on the screen. Did it seem like they had a enlightened view of femininity? From Barbarella to Showgirls, from Play Mystic for Me to Fatal Attraction, from Carnal Knowledge to And the Company of Men, from Looking for Mr. Goodbar to Single White Female, from Last Tango in Paris to 50 Shades of Grey, from Clue to Pretty Woman, from Midnight Cowboy to American Gigolo, from Porky's to American Pie, and what was the girl power movie of the 90s, Thelma and Louise, where the women are portrayed as psycho killers on the run from the law who drive off a fucking cliff, and that was supposed to be the girl power movie of the 90s. Did it seem like they had an enlightened view of feminism and femininity? They weren't even being subtle about it. The sexism and misogyny is right there on the screen. And just to digress for a moment, I'm really getting tired of the empty fucking cliche. And every retro review, you couldn't make a movie like that nowadays. What are these Nimrods talking about? Shouldn't the cliche be, whenever they ever stop making movies like that? Because every time somebody says you couldn't make a movie like that nowadays, I immediately think of 10 movies released just last year that disproves that notion. So at what point does that just become an empty fucking cliche? For decades, Mel Brooks and his fellow screenwriters have been saying you couldn't make a movie like Blazing Saddles nowadays when Quentin Tarantino comes out with Django Unchained. So what makes you think you could make a movie like that nowadays? And as much as the rogue morons harp on Mel Brooks' use of the N-word in Blazing Saddles, it was a brilliant satire on racism and a lampoon of westerns. And if you haven't noticed, it's the only movie of Mel Brooks's where the word is used and is a satire on racism, so it's not done gratuitously. Meanwhile, I can't think of a Quentin Tarantino movie from Reservoir Dogs all the way up to and including Django Unchained where the word isn't used. For fucking ever these dopes have been saying, you could make a movie like Animal House or Porky's nowadays, then they come out with the American Pie franchise or The Hangover, which was a one-movie premise if ever I saw one, and they had the gall to make a trilogy out of it. How many times do we have to watch these dickheads get roofied at a bachelor party and have to figure out what they did the night before. Say what you want, but they only made one, and dude, where's my car? But that's Hollywood for you. If you think Hollywood will milk a good idea to death, just look up the dude with a bad idea. So can we start with the empty fucking cliche? You couldn't make a movie like that nowadays. Shouldn't the cliche be whenever they ever stop making movies like that? Not that long ago, Molly Ringwald wrote an op-ed opining that John Hughes, as good as a writer as he was, suffered from a glaring blind spot. She should thank her lucky star she got in with a writer-director who was only interested in writing meaty roles for her to play. There's a good reason why John Hughes movies, as dopey as they were, are finally remembered, because most of the teenage comedies of the 80s were just straight-up sexploitation. They didn't give a shit about good acting, good writing, or good directing. All they gave a shit about was, when do we get to see the cheerleaders' tits? Did you ever shift the page? She should thank her lucky stars she got in with a good writer-director that was only interested in writing beauty roles for her to play, because most of the teenage comedies of the 80s were just straight-up sexploitation. They didn't give a shit about good acting, good writing, or good directing. All they cared about was, when do we get to see the cheerleaders' tits? As much as everybody on social media opines about how politically incorrect John Hughes movies of the 80s were, compared to the stuff he wrote for National Lampoon in the 90s, they were Disney films. Did you ever think about how redundant it is that we live in a country that used to build books on trial to determine whether or not they are obscene? Did you ever think about how much police manpower and court time was wasted on stupid nonsense like that? What's the point? If you like the book, read it. If you don't like the book, don't read it. End the fucking story. Don't you think it's a bit of an overreaction to issue an Amber Alert just because someone checks out a copy of Lolita from the local library? I actually saw Larry Flynn on TV when Adrian Lyne released the remake of Lolita in the 90s. Tried to feign outrage and concern. What's the matter, Larry? Upset over the fact that there was no photo spared in the novel. Now shut the fuck up, smutmonger, and go buy a copy of Barely Legal. It's just a novel. You do realize, of course, that of human bondage had nothing to do with sadomasochism. Did you know the real reason they went after Lenny Bruce was because he went on the local news in Chicago and called out a judge by name? We're trying to get him to offer him a bribe in order to get him to drop the drug charges against him. Makes sense, right? Obscenity wasn't the real reason. They were going after Lenny Bruce. It was just the excuse, too. The official explanation is usually never the actual reason. It's almost always a bullshit justification. Think about it. Lenny Bruce was just an obscure nightclub comic at the time. If you had never bought one of his albums or saw him on Steve Allen, so you probably never heard of him. He was just an obscure nightclub comic. Ironically enough, the obscenity trials made him famous. Lenny Bruce wasn't the only blue comic at the time. There was Betty Hackett, Red Fox, Professor Aaron Curry. So I go after Lenny because he went on the local news and called out a judge by name for trying to get him to offer him a bribe in order to drop the drug charges against him. They were trying to teach him a lesson, so they wasted all that court time and police manpower trying to persecute and intimidate an obscure nightclub comic. When that court time and police manpower had been put to better use, going after actual criminals. And speaking of actual criminals, let's get back to Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby. If you're a Hollywood mogul, a captain of industry, and A-list celebrity, and you make multi-million-dollar deals, you get flown everywhere on private jets, you get driven everywhere driven to award shows and stretch limos, and you still don't know how to seduce a woman. If you feel the need to drug or sexually assault women, then you're just unfuckable. I've known homeless guys who could find love. Seriously, I've known homeless guys who could find love. True story, when I was working at Labor Ready, which was a temp service, Bobby and his old lady who was in a wheelchair, who had just arrived in West Columbia after Katrina, and they were homeless, and they found love. My friend Paul and I showed up to work early one day, and our friend Anthony was there, and he was laughing, and we asked him what was so funny, and he said, when he got to Labor, he heard moaning in the alley, so he went to go see what it was, and Bobby and his old lady was fucking up, and she was in a wheelchair. This wheelchair is a rocking. Our work boots must be a knocking. They were homeless, going to soup kitchens, sleeping on the pavements, going to homeless shelters. He even got so desperate he broke the candy store window beside Labor Ready, knocked to rob the store, but so he could get 3 hots and a cot at one place to stay for the night. If you're a Hollywood mogul, a captain of industry, a A-list celebrity, you make multi-million-dollar deals, you get flown everywhere on private jets, you get driven to award shows and stretch limos. If you feel the need to sexually assault women because you don't know how to seduce a woman, then you're just unfuckable. I have known homeless guys who could find love.